Great to be back with y'all. Great to be back in Heads Down Kicking. And guys, it is the final week of the third quarter. And how you play in the fourth quarter truly determines whether you are going to be a winner or loser. It truly determines how you're setting up 2025. So I love that you're all here, ready to go and attack this content. Man, what an important piece about how we are the people we hang out with, the people in our world, the purple we'll lean into. So with that being said, I'm leaning into you guys. What'd you take away from chapter 6? Jeanette, your mic's hot. Let's kick it off. What do you
got? That was an accident, but anyway.
A happy little accident, right?
Isn't that happy little accident. I just didn't turn it off. We truly are, page 81, judged by the company we keep. And a company is judged by the men it keeps. And the people of a democratic nation, people of nations, are judged by the type or caliber of officers they elect. And we're a republic. We're not a democrat. Our democratic nation specifically. We're a Republican. Wrong. We're a republic.
Democratic Republic.
And we are, so it's interesting. So it's like, I don't want to get caught on that word in this election time. But we're judged by the company, and the company is judged by the men it keeps. So who we have around us. We did watch The Forge this weekend, which was an amazing movie. It was about relationships and about accountability, and it was about the strength of character and growing and building each other. And it was an amazing movie. It's going into my library. So
think about this, Jeanette, because you just hit two key ones. It's about the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the accountability. Those two things going together, man, because we've got to have that accountability piece to have truly powerful relationships. And I love this back to back. Doug, what's the counter position to your wife? Speak up. What do you got, Doug?
There's no counter. We're all working together. This quote from John Wooden I thought was awesome. You will never outperform your inner circle. And he goes through the different groups that we have, which are strangers, associations, and I forgot all the groups, but the inner circle is the one that is most important. And even though we're not really all real close personally, the impact that you guys are having on me is a lot like an inner circle. So I think that this is that when you think about who you're hanging out with, who you're drawn to, who you like to be around, that really can help us understand where we are in life. And so it talks about what was that quote from Benjamin Franklin? Be careful when choosing a friend. Be more careful when changing a friend. So there's some good insights in this chapter. So
yeah, and there's also some pieces that it didn't go into in the dynamics of the relationships. And so there's one piece I really want to put in here for everybody, that as you're now looking at your relationships, who's in your life, and analyzing, that you're only one association away from something radically different. Maybe, just maybe, that association already exists and we're just not interacting it with correctly. And this comes from John Maxwell, because in every relationship, there's two key components: care and candor. Loving on people, and is how Jeanette brought into the room, holding people accountable. And here's what John has to say about this. Care without candor creates dysfunctional relationships. Think about that. People maybe that you should be having fierce conversations with, and you're not. Candor without care creates distant relationships. So if all you're doing is holding people accountable, it's going to drive a wedge and drive them away. And finally, care balanced with candor creates developing relationships. So let me go through those three again, just in case you're writing them down. Care without candor creates dysfunctional relationships. Candor without care creates distant relationships. And balancing care and candor creates developing relationships. So maybe, just maybe, there's one that exists in your world right now. With just changing that balance, it'll develop into something even more amazing. Tom, what do you got, brother?
Well, I thought it was interesting when he was talking about the 5 people that you associate most with, and I've thought about this a lot and thought, okay, well, these are the 5 people. But when I went back and looked at in the last 2 months who I've spent the most time with, that was a more realistic reflection of who I am and what characteristics I'm developing, and who's in this with me. And so I would have thought of best friends and all this stuff, and they're just not around as much as people that I run into here and in other places. That so what I'm trying to say is, when you're considering the people that you're interacting with, really notice who you're hanging out with more often than not. I mean, the Harringtons are hanging out with the Harringtons and 3 others. Anyway, it's really interesting, because who I thought I was a reflection of is not necessarily the reality. And now I value those people that I've actually identified, who I actually spend more time with in a stronger way.
Yeah, and the fun part of this, having this chapter now in our life, many of us, as we were going through this chapter and reviewing, I've had some great conversations with people. The last 90 days, it's who you've been hanging out with almost accidentally. Now you get to bring intentionality to it. Who are you going to intentionally lean into to bring closer into that inner circle? Maybe not all the way in. And yet there's folks you've got right now around you that, if you're willing to ask, if you're willing to reach out and say, hey, I'd like us to spend more time together, they very well may. So many of us just are unwilling to ask. Our ego gets in the way. They might say no, where it's all about you. And yet amazing things happen when you just ask for help. Mark, I see you, and Caesar, I see you. What do you got, Mark?
So I remember 20 years ago, Don gave me, basically, it looked like a pie, and it was a circle, and it was divided into small pies, and each one of those pies had a word, and one of them said spirituality, one of them said physical, one of them said health, one of them said mental, and one of them said business. And Don said, you need to have a coach or a mentor in every one of those areas. So it's not just, we've always heard like your wealth is determined by the 5 people that you spend, that the 5 wealthiest people that you, or whatever you're close to, but it goes for every area in your life. It goes for who you're hanging out with spiritually, who are you hanging out with business, who are you hanging out with for health, who are you hanging out with for your mental. And it's really important for us to recognize that, like Tom said, to take inventory of that and then go put those people in your life that maybe where that pie is suffering. So if your business life isn't where it needs to be, maybe you need to hang out with better business people, and the same thing with your physical life. And like the cool thing is like, if you're hanging out with some really good physical people that help you, with your physical and eat healthy, whatever, you might not go to them for marriage advice if they've been married for a time, but that doesn't mean you can't use them on the spiritual side. You know what I'm saying? So we need to be very specific in the people that we put around us. And this is a great reminder. If you've got some holes in those areas, that we need to put those people back in our life. And Don went so far as to call them coaches. We can call them mentors, we can call them friends, whatever it is, but it's important. Like Russ said, it's super important to be intentional. And at the end of the day, I found that takes a lot of work to be intentional in all those areas at the same time. And Don said, when it's done correctly, it's called balance.
Yeah, that wheel. We did a great exercise previously. I mean, you were in those rooms, Mark, where we would rate ourselves from 1 to 10. In fact, we have the success wheel, and maybe we should be bringing that in to our October 9th, 10th event. That could be fun. I'm making a note of that. Where you rate yourself on that and see really how balanced you are. And as you just think through that process, you might find places that, yeah, you need somebody else. That's another great way to see who else come in your world, looking through that lens. Mark, Caesar, you were next up, brother. And then Celeste, I see you.
Thank you, Coach. I love there was something interesting in page 89 where it says you should be able to feel that buzz when you're around these people. So that's what was like really interesting, that when you do feel that, and I do feel that in here a lot with people when they speak, and it's like it makes sense of why that inner circle is like a flow of energy, because like you say something and then they connect with it strongly. But it more specifically, it also says people in your inner circle should have a fully developed sense of emotional maturity. They need to be steadily influencers who are happy and highly productive. So I love that there's certain traits that you were looking for, not just saying, oh, this is your inner circle. And lastly, I want to end with it. Not only this is our inner circle, we have to be cognitive of who we're watching, like either podcasts or listening to the news, because that is our inner circle as well. If you're constantly like giving it so much of your focus, right? So that's something that I thought of right now, that on the positive side, I look up to some people now, certain people that I listen to and what they've developed as their company, and Edmilep being one of them, and seeing those things that you can connect with online as well. So like that could be a small part of some weird inner circle that we have now.
Caesar, can I? Oh, sorry.
Go. No, and I love that. You guys
awesome. That was greatly inspirational to me, because my immediate inner circle is people who are doing really well, that also really love to get a lot of support from me. And I love them so much. Like it's like my two most important people, and they're not changing. And yet it doesn't leave me a ton of time out in the world for finding mentors in each of those things on like a social level. Being here creates clearly one of those, associations. And then recognizing that, oh, I do need to go hunt up. These are the places where I might be lacking. I need to find a person that I follow. And honestly, what it made me look at our world too and be like, oh, that's really interesting, because when we look at the spectacular strides we're making as human beings, and also the insane chaos our world has sort of stumbled into at this moment, that's all people's vibe, right? That's the strides are people who are elevating and looking upward and finding things to grow into. And then the other is people who are somehow like creating something that isn't what I'm looking to create. So that was really helpful. I'm going to be off on a mission in my spare time to go find someone for each of my wheel points that thank you, Mark, for the thumbs up. I appreciate the support. To fill those spaces for me. So thank you for that.
And there's only one nugget I want to kind of throw in here on that, Anne, and that, because you said this, hey, I'm hanging out with people that are doing really well and taking a bunch of support from me.
Yeah.
Okay. The key with this is doing well and helping each other do well. And if I just poured into or leveraged a bunch of other people to pour into me and accelerate me, hey, that's great. Yet I'm not lifting them up as well. So part of this inner circle, the people that get closest, it's a balanced relationship. It's not just them taking especially your time.
And
So
that's probably my
Celeste,
fault.
and
I'm
it
probably,
is. I love that you're owning that.
Yeah.
And now you got to start creating a little bit more barrier. So I see Celeste, Julianne, Carrie in that order. Celeste, you're up.
So when I take in a chapter like this, I think about the ways that we're looking for direction in our day, just using a day as an example, and staying accountable to this morning book session, as well as staying accountable to the afternoon session, has been really very helpful to me. But I realized something. I'm a mentor to new agents, and I'm bringing a wealth of information. But if they are not taking in the information I'm giving, or they're not showing up, what good is what I can offer them? So I can see where there's a lot of frustration for someone who is a coach when they're offering their best nuggets and people are sitting there like this. So with my mindset of how frustrating it is when I'm trying to share with my new people, I realize I may be doing that same thing where I'm not letting all the good come in. And what I'm also aware of is when I hear someone like Ryan, who constantly says, if you're hearing it or you're reading it or learning it, what are you doing to then turn around and apply it? How are you actually using that stuff? Because it's nice to learn it, but if you're not putting it around saying, I'm going to change my day, I'm going to create a plan, and this plan includes these things, and then I'm going to track it. Every day I'm going to do these things. And how is that changing my life? Because Russ has been telling us this. I'm positive every other coach says the same stuff, but are we actually doing it?
Well, here's the part that makes me smile the most, and it's twofold. One, you having your RAS now turned on to, how am I showing up in those environments where there are other coaches? And I'm going to use the word leader because many of you are now stepping up as leaders. And I cannot tell you guys, I can't count how many conversations I've had in the last 90 days with people who are stepping into that leadership space and having that frustration of people aren't showing up. Had that conversation this morning. People aren't paying attention. If they would just do this, magic would happen, and they're not doing it, which it's part of your guys' growth journey as well. If you're in that space where you're being a leader, being a coach, being a mentor, and people aren't leaning in and following, that's just part of the process, guys. I mean, think about this. I've been running this room for 3 years, and for like the first 6 months, a lot of time it was just me and one other person. And it took time on task over time to keep growing and building and getting more people to plug in. So the other thing, back to this one more concept, when you're a leader and you're getting frustrated that people aren't plugging in, you just got to keep leading one more time. You got to still stay on it. You've got to continue to do whatever you're doing, knowing in your heart that you're helping folks. Julianne, you're next. Ryan, I saw your mic on. I'm adding you to the list after Carrie. What do you got, Julianne?
Hi there. Okay. So this actually brought me back to this chapter, I think it was 2, where he talks about the matrix and how you're the one. And because we are the one in control. And it made me, I guess my big aha moment from this chapter was that the old me, before I evolved into who I am today, would surround myself in people who needed me. They needed my energy. They didn't really feed me. And then I found myself becoming like a seminar junkie because it's like I needed to be fed energy and I wasn't getting it from the people that I surrounded myself regularly with. And then I realized that was ego talking. I liked feeling needed because I'm an empty nester. And so my role shifted in family, and I'm like the one who like kept everything going together, created all the holidays. And when that disappeared, I just found the neediest people I could find and let them surround me because it made me feel needed. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I really was able to shift comfortably into into my new role, into my new skin. And it's kind of fun to see that there's a whole purpose that so many uh, presenters that I have met, authors that I've read, talk about the five, the five people you spend the majority of time with. And I realized too, I'm a life coach. And so I realize that I do give, but I have to intentionally be better about building my inner circle, because my job is to be giving and helping people to elevate and find their inner circles. But it's really rough when people want to be a part of your inner circle and you're like, yeah, but you don't feed me. I learn from you, but the elevation is missing, and the constant evolving that I want to be my higher self.
So let's, Julianne, go back to the care and candor.
Yes.
This is where you've lived a world of care, of being in that care space, and maybe not be willing to have that fierce conversation of candor. Now you get to get better about having those tougher conversations. And by the way, with some people, when you have that tougher conversation, they can't take it and they go away. Others will lean in and the relationship will shift and change. Carrie, you're next up.
Oh, I most resonated with, well, a lot of it, but I'm going to choose page 90 at the very end. The quote, it says, "Close friends are truly life's treasures. Sometimes they know us better than we know ourselves. With gentle honesty, they are there to guide and support us, to share our laughter and our tears. Their presence reminds us that we're never really alone." So there's several ways I relate to that. I'll just tell you two real quick. One is that I've had several people tell me that starting when I was in high school, that I seem to know things about them that they didn't know. And the second thing is for me personally, and the thing about knowing people better than you know yourself. I've had a couple of mentors, or adults, maybe my parents, that would say stuff and I'd be like, you're so mean. I don't know why you're saying that. You don't like me. You know what I mean? And so I just resonated both ways, positively and negatively. I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, it's so interesting too on these people coming in. I love this from page 86. Everything has an expiration date. And really acknowledging and accepting that no matter what, the only constant in life is change. So be open to that and be open to that blessing. And the more you decide and shift some people out of your world and create some space, there's going to create that vacuum that nature abhors. And it's going to lead to other people coming in that maybe, just maybe in that moment you need. Ryan Van Ornen, brother, you're up.
I'm a little, my balloon's a little deflated, Coach, because I was just going to say the exact same thing you just said about having an expiration date. So, but that's okay. I feel like that when you take, my kids play video games, and there's a lot of people that play video games. And one of the things is you have to level up in those things to hit another level. And if you're looking at life in terms of stages and how your growth is, are you leveling up? And are you keeping the same friends? I don't have the same friends from high school. So, why is it that we put these limitations on ourselves that, the people that we broke into the business with in real estate, those are the know-alls, like, no, we just have to continue to seek and find those people that are going to, whether we're going to nourish them or they're going to nourish us in different ways, whether it's in our business, in our spiritual, in our health journeys, all of these aspects. And it's okay to have people come in and out. They can come into the inner circle, they can go back to the outer circle. It's okay. And having that, like, I've always been a person that seeks validation, and I've gotten to the point that it's like it has to be intrinsic motivation instead of extrinsic motivations that are driving you. Once you understand that, your journey becomes much easier.
Ryan, can I add to that? I love what you're saying, because in the book it says that those inner circle people need to have something that you don't have or you aspire to have, whether it's in business, in fitness. Someone we're just I think Tom referring to, someone that's in shape. You want to take their advice, because they have that in family. Ryan, you have 4. I have one little girl, and you say I think you have 4 children. Like, that is another level up that my mentality is not at yet, because I just want, I'm like, this is chaos. How could you have 4?
We have 7.
Okay, so that you just blew my mind even more. Thank you. I was at one level. Now you just exploded. The point is, in business as well, and like, for example, how you say you have some commercial, and I'm just getting my feet wet in those last couple of years of that. And that's why I feel like you're in my inner circle, because we inspire each other. We had a nice text messages the other day where we completely understand each other, where we were coming from. So that's why it's so natural with Coach as well. I aspire to have his way of responding to all of these objections all the time, or having these coaching tips at all times, right? So that's why we're here as well. It's his, like, that's why I called him Morpheus the other day, because that's how I feel that he has like a lot of these answers. So, Coach, I just wanted to say that and share that with Ryan as well, because it just resonated that with.
Awesome. Thank you. And Miss Alicia, get that mic hot and bring us home. I saw you wanting to speak up and can't wait to hear from you.
Sure. So a couple things. So the day you called me was one of those, one association away from a life-changing moment. This group is is now like my get your head right and hanging out with people who want the same thing. Other groups I'm in with other EXP people, I mean, it's the same thing. So coming to EXP was absolutely life-changing for me. And then one of the things I'm doing that I'm taking not just from the book, but from Coach, is I am implementing with an implementation list. Like, instead of just being in the book club, I'm taking the stuff that I want to do and I'm putting it on a list. And then thanks to Ryan, I'm creating a rubric and around these lists. And I'm going to be grading myself to make sure that to see where I'm lacking, so I know where to put the improvement in. And then I was just going to say, with trying to give someone negative feedback, if you have something critical to say to them, I think sometimes maybe just asking for permission before you do it. And then also in a leadership role, if people don't show up, even if the one person shows up, I could actually see Coach Russ being, hey, the most important person is here anyway. Yeah.
Well, so Alicia, the association, like you're saying here as we wrap this up, key, and we're all just one away from the next level up. And really appreciate your kind words of what this room's doing and these relationships are doing. And guys, this chapter really was all about you in this room. You're all doing it. You're creating the associations. To hear each of you now be talking about the others. Man, Ryan is helping me. Kim's helping me. I see these other conversations happening offline where you guys are building these little mini tribes based on what's happening here. And that absolutely gives me joy to watch you guys doing this, building bigger lives. And I'm excited to see what the future holds. So it is a couple minutes over. I'm going to stop the recording here. It is